Hello, hi, welcome to another Walter Scott Prize for Historical Fiction 2026 video. This is video number 10, so I'm nearly done with the long list. I know the shortlist has already been announced, and I've read all of the shortlist, but I want to try and get through the whole long list. I'm making quite good progress. I don't think I'll read the next two by the time the winner's announced, but maybe I'll get another one done, so I'm pretty much nearly there. Anyway, this video is all about Helm by Sarah Hall. If you saw the ending of my last video, I was about 2 or 3 chapters into Helm at that point, and I kind of gave the impression that maybe it wasn't going to be my sort of thing. And yeah, I was wrong about that. So Helm is quite strangely, uniquely, and experimentally based from the viewpoint of Helm, which is a wind. Which is something I've never come across before, very unique. And we follow Helm and Helm's point of view through history, regaling tales that they've witnessed throughout their existence. It sounds quite strange and wonderful, and it is, really. So at the end of my last video, I'd only read a couple of chapters, and the first chapter I really enjoyed. So that's kind of from Helm's viewpoint, in Helm's own voice. And it was quite edgy, quite strange, and I really liked it. But then the next 2 chapters, I didn't quite get along with as much, and I thought, oh god, this is going to be one that I maybe struggle with. But it did completely change after that, and it is really interesting. I wouldn't say it's my favourite from the long list. Possibly, I would put it on the short list. I would probably remove Ben Becula and add the 2 Robertson Helm. Because I do think it deserves a spot there. But I do think history has told us, especially the last couple of years that I've been doing this, that the Walter Scott Prize judges don't seem to like anything too experimental. So like we saw with Cuddy and For Thy Great Pain a couple of years ago. They don't seem to make the shortlist, which I think is a shame, because it definitely stands out from the other books on the long list. So the novel opens up, the first chapter that I quite enjoyed, with Helm's birth, for want of a better word, and we're soon given a glimpse as a reader of what to expect from Helm. Straight from the bat, we get that sort of experimental tone. It's quite humorous as well throughout, especially the bits that Helm, even though all the stories are from Helm's point of view, when Helm's talking about themselves, it's very humorous, very funny. So just to give a glimpse of what I mean by the sort of humorous tone throughout the novel, especially at the beginning, right at the beginning, Helm writes, "It's a crazy coming of age. Helm enjoys the feeling of agency, of urgency, so plays with Helm's self to arouse the feeling, desire for great wreaking, havoc-making release, surging from a sky orifice down the mountain, and yes, yes, oh yes, there's Helm." It has quite a lot of that, especially, as I said, from Helm's point of view, which I found really quite funny. There's a bit about balloons, both the hot air balloon type and Use Your Imagination, which I kind of laughed out loud at. But there's also some serious parts to the novel, some serious tones that run through. And I think as the story progresses, you kind of get to understand the themes that are running through the book. So just an example of that a bit further onwards, without giving spoilers away, we have, "And if we are not seen, are we not real? If we are not believed, have we no form and pain and purpose in the world? Whosoever loves us, do they love us when they no longer remember us?" So we have elements of that intertwined with the humour. So each chapter begins with a different point in time. So the story goes right from the Neolithic ages right to the present time, and maybe a little bit in the future. A lot of the time we aren't given very much information about what exact time period we're in. We're given hints as to sort of a brief sort of area. So the Neolithic period, we're kind of told it's a Neolithic period. Then other times we're given hints, so like the 13th century, and then there's quite a lot more recent within the sort of 20th century, late 20th century and the 21st century. So each chapter is a different point in time, and we do go back, as the chapters progress, we go back to stories that we've already heard, and we follow on from where we left off in the previous chapter. And we get new characters, obviously, with each chapter. So as I said, the first chapter and the last one is Helm's point of view I really like those bits. There's a few more dotted around as well, which I just found really sort of warming. As I mentioned, the first two chapters, so the first chapter was the Neolithic era, and then the second one was like the 13th century era. The first of those chapters I found quite difficult, and maybe that's just me. So the first Neolithic one, we are following at the time a young girl from a tribe. I just found a lot of the language I didn't quite understand, and that's probably just me as a reader. Someone far more intelligent probably would have no issue with that. But I do feel as the chapters went on and we went back to the Neolithic era, as we went back to the Neolithic era, the language did subside, and it was just beautiful and far more understandable for me, which made it a lot more enjoyable. I say the first couple of chapters, because I didn't quite understand, it takes away that enjoyment for me. The second chapter, or chapter 3, when it started, which I didn't quite get, was, I believe, sort of 13th century. We're following this wizard who is trying to banish Helm. Now, the following chapters where we go back to him aren't as bad, but that first one I found quite confusing and quite hard to follow. We also follow this, seems like a witch who has been locked up by her husband, who is against all sorts of witchcraft. And the husband is trying to destroy some sort of monument where Helm is based, some stones or something relating to what the witches use to celebrate their craft, maybe. It's like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I've got statues of goddesses. It's like that to them, a monument to their faith. We have, as I said, a few more modern-ish era stories. One of my favourite, I think actually my favourite story is from, it seems very sort of modern day, probably quite recent, is that of Selima. She's a sort of scientist who is staying in the area. So the area I forgot to mention is up north in Cumbria, near the Lake District, and I do have a bit of a soft spot for the Lake District. I love the Lake District. And yeah, one of my favourite stories is following Selima, who's doing some research about microplastics in the atmosphere, and she goes on a bit of a journey herself. Now, there's quite a bit of the novel, some of the information is quite niche, and if you don't know it, that could maybe also cause some confusion for you. I know, as I said, the first couple of chapters it did for me when I did start looking up stuff, and that kind of takes away some of the enjoyment. For example, there's a bit about Wordsworth, and I think in the story they're in the process of building the railway up in Cumbria, and it'd say if Wordsworth could see this, he would something like shit a farthing or something like that. And I only know from my visit, I went to the Lake District, I went to Wordsworth's house, and though he was found out he was very against the building of the railway. So because I knew that, I got that part. But if you're unaware of that sort of thing, you'll read it and you'll understand it, but you won't maybe make that connection. Some of the chapters can seem quite confusing in that, you know, this whole novel is meant to be about Helm, and in some of those early chapters, Helm doesn't seem to be very present at all, and we're kind of left wondering what is, you know, the connection. But as the story goes on, or the stories go on, we soon see how Helm intertwines itself through all of these stories into all of these people's lives, and I thought that was really clever. So thematically, I think for me, and that's what I love about literature, everyone's going to have their own sort of interpretation about what something means to them, what a piece of writing means to them. They're all going to be quite similarly connected, but it will be their own interpretation. So for me, it's kind of about human relationships with each other, but also human relationships with our environment. We see how the ancients responded to weather, almost kind of worshipping it, and especially when Helm does something for the ancients, you see how that sort of belief is reinforced. We go to the 13th century wizard who's trying to banish Helm, sees it as almost demonic. And then we, as I say, come more to the 20th century, 21st century, where people are starting to try and understand Helm more and, you know, using scientific experiments to get a better understanding of Helm. Because of that, to me, Helm feels like a bit of a warning to the human race, to respect each other, but also a warning to respect our environment, because whatever we're doing you know, we're going to be long gone, and the environment, the planet is still going to be living. So yes, let's respect each other, but let's respect our planet as well, because the longer we do that, the longer we may have a chance to enjoy its beauty. There also seems to be an undertone of warnings to the human race about our conflicts with each other. And, you know, if we continue on that path being sort of aggressive towards each other, then that could be more disastrous than anything Helm or the weather or the planet could throw at us, maybe apart from a comet, possibly. One thing's for sure, Helm existed long before humans and will exist long after we're gone. And we should probably read a bit more into that and into our interactions with our environment to see if we can try and not so much rebuild our relationship, but improve our relationship with what is around us. What I also really like is the effect of human beings' presence on Helm. Helm also seems to go from this footloose and fancy-free, as I say, quite funny in the beginning, to actually being a bit sort of, sad, absorbing this negativity, pessimism and cynicism from people, from constant pollution and pandemics, humans which are contaminating the world. So that's my thoughts on Helm. Overall, I did actually really enjoy it. As I said, it started off a bit sort of like, I felt like it was going to be a bit of a challenge for me. I mean, I never do not finish books. I always finish. If I'm going to, especially when I'm doing something like this for the prize, I feel it's just my duty and respect to the authors to finish all of them. And if I don't maybe necessarily agree with that style of writing or the story, I will still read it and appreciate it. So yeah, I thought I was going to be going down that path, but absolutely really loved it in the end. I say not so much as the Matchbox Girl and the Pretender, but it is up there. And, you know, I would have liked to have seen it on the shortlist with the two Roberts. I think it probably deserved a place on there. Yeah, it's just really wonderfully creative, something completely different to what I've read before. Some of the stories, you don't really get a lot of closure. You kind of follow, and some of them, like the Neolithic era, it's not so much closure, but it's closure enough. Whereas Selima's story, I kind of wanted to follow a bit more. She kind of went through this journey herself. And maybe that's reflecting, you know, being probably in the most present story, the very close danger that we are facing right now. But yeah, I'd love to follow Selima's story a bit more as well. But yeah, I really love that. So that's Helm. Next up, I've got the two, I've got them both. I'm not sure which I'm going to read. I'll just pick one, I'll start reading it later. But that's my thoughts on Helm. What did you think? If you've read it, let me know in the comments. Until next time, thank you for watching. Bye.